30
Oh,
seconds.
that's what she.
I saw him outside 30 seconds ago leaving.
All right. Let's,
I was walking in, Sonia. Did we not argue about this?
all right.
What's up with Michael?
Is this working?
He's upset about stuff.
I don't know if we have mics. Check, check,
Had a couple.
check, check. Does it work?
Well,
Been robbed.
Yes.
Okay.
I can pretend to be taking notes with my pen that doesn't write.
Here.
I brought my dinner.
Is this working?
Husband.
Doesn't sound like it, does it?
What else do you have in this?
This is not working.
That's
Kind of working.
Fries in there.
Definitely on the quiet side.
Are they clean or not? That's the question.
Maybe now the fan's off.
Highlighter. Getting closer.
Working or not?
All right.
Probably not.
We'll call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:03 PM. The board has land acknowledgement, anti-racism statement posted to its website. Roll call tonight. We have everyone here. Michael's absent. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda.
All right, all those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, first item on the agenda is announcements. Does anyone have any announcements?
I have some announcements. Is this even on?
Oh, no, that's,
Um,
I don't,
my announcements are
They're open.
the pool is opening this Saturday at 9 AM. It's looking beautiful, especially on a hot day like today. Swim lesson sign up for the Y, I was told today, would be live this week. So that just leaves tomorrow. So hopefully it will be live tomorrow for people who want to start signing up at the YMCA website for swim lessons. Also, we've had such lovely weather that the marina has been quite busy, and I'm sure it will be very busy this weekend with the holiday. We are fully staffed down there. So if people aren't quite sure where to get a launch pass for the day or where their boat goes, there will be someone all weekend staff down there to answer your questions. Thank you.
any other announcements? All right, hearing none, we'll move to property owner comments. Have a comment, you come to the podium.
Think so. Can everybody hear me? Okay. This is a little
Walk right into it.
talk right into. it. Let me
Closer
come a little
personal.
closer.
Now we can pull it up closer to your.
There we go. Sorry to come in here and be clunking around you guys. I didn't mean to
Oh, you're
disrupt
okay.
the start of the meeting. Just a couple comments. I had the opportunity to take a look at the engineering design for the launch ramp dock. Looks like a really good substantial structure. I was really pleased to see the dock itself will be wider. When I look at that design, it looks like it'll be 6 feet wide, which would be, I don't know if the camera's on or not, but if someone came down in a chair, when you come down the pier structure, get down onto the dock, but that's 6 feet wide, one would be able to have really good space to turn and say turn 90 degrees, face your boat and get aboard. And to get off, if one needed to do like a 3-point turn to back up and turn to get up, that'll be really good. I was a little surprised to see that on the pier structure, the walls look rather high. Typically on ADA ramps, we'll have a piece of bulwark, maybe maybe 8 inches or something like that to keep our casters from going over the side. But I'm not sure what all those ADA requirements might be. The one thing that kind of got me scratching my head is $225,000 is a lot of money. Um, the thing that I would urge you to do, and the question I'd like to see is the numbers, like what would be the cost to fabricate that structure versus to install it. I'm not sure where the engineer came up with in terms of who they talked to for estimates like that. I don't know whether they were talking to someone locally or somebody out of state, whether this would be a company that might be doing things like putting a lot of walls in or things like that, tidal walls in saltwater systems. But I'm kind of curious about where that money came from. I'm hoping that you'll have an opportunity to talk to that engineering team and ask them how they came up with those numbers. It sounds like those are estimates. Are those estimates, AJ?
Their estimate, and then they'll go out to bid.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just curious where they came up with that. The other comment I have, and hopefully I'm not getting too much on 3 minutes, is I've heard a lot of good discussion about parks and ADA access for kids to get in the playgrounds. What I'd like to share with you from being a member in the paralysis community, I spent a lot of time talking to people, to families. I'm on the board of a nonprofit that does provide support for people like that in the community. And what I tell you is that people don't feel like they have to have access at every park, to get on a piece of playground equipment. It's just some of them. I don't know, no family feels like they have to be able to go to every park and it be that way, but at least know that there are parks where that child could go and get aboard, back to the marina, to get onto a piece of playground equipment and enjoy it with an able-bodied friend. So that's my feedback. I don't know if all y'all heard that or not, but thank you.
Hey, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Rob.
Can you state your name, please?
Just kidding.
My
Oh
name is
God.
Michael Wadsworth, 5 Western Lane. I'm here as a homeowner. I came to announce that I have officially resigned as chair of NNE last night at our meeting. I don't know if people have seen it or not, but it's on if you want to look at it. And we elected Gail as chair, and I was elected as secretary. I will still be on the NNE, and I will still do my best to represent the homeowners during the AGM. And I wanted first to apologize for my comment when I came in here. I was told I was stupid and only asked dumb questions, and it irritated me. And I'm sorry. You pulled one of my biggest buttons, and I apologize.
Maybe don't use
I
the F
still would like
word
to
in my
know why
face in the future.
I would still like to know why the treasurer answers all the emails and addresses all the situations here, and nothing is said by the president, vice president, or the secretary.
So walk out again. You're not on camera every time you've walked out of these board meetings, but you've done it. You've made a habit of it, and you got in my face and you used nasty language towards me. You apologize, but you're trying to make it sound like I just did it out of the blue, that I reacted to you. You were very rude to me and intimidating. You're a foot taller than me, and you got in my face cussing me with very vulgar sailor language. So I think the membership should be aware of what really happened. Thank you for that. I'm sorry too.
All right, we'll move on. Item number 4 on the agenda is the financial report.
Community.
Okay, so I'm going to be going over the March 2023 financial statements. Obviously, last month I went over February, so now we're up to March. Okay, so and of course, obviously, I normally we start out with the balance sheet. And like I said last month, and the same applies to this month, there's no real huge major changes going on with the balance sheet. Nothing that's irregular or out of the ordinary. So the balance sheet looks fine. So I think we'll just go ahead and go to the next page, which is the most interesting page, which is probably what everyone's always most interested in this whole community would be the income statement, which is showing basically, and obviously this column, we'll just go ahead and we'll just focus on this column right here, this third column from the right, basically the operating reserves. But basically, when you think of the budget, when you vote on the budget, the town hall and stuff, this column is the operating budget, which really shows how we're tracking budget to actual. Now you can see in terms of well, I guess maybe I'll just go ahead and start off with the collection rate. So we're budgeted for a 95% collection rate for the year. Of course, back in last month, I said we were tracking at a 93.3% collection rate. Of course, we always start off with our collection rate at the lowest point of the year in January. Then we work our way up. It always goes up towards as we go from January then on into February. So as you can see, for March 2023, we're now at 95.5%, so we're at a 0.5% higher than what we're budgeted at, which is good. And I've already worked out the collection rate for April. So April, we've increased it even more. So April 2023, we're at 96% collection rate versus April 2022. So a year prior to that, we were at 95.7. So we're actually tracking better at the end of April than where we were at the end of April, the preceding year before that, which is good. And I said before, and I'll just go ahead and I'll just quickly repeat these numbers again. But if someone's wondering, what does that do for us in terms of if we have a higher collection rate than what we budgeted? So basically, what that means is for every percent, obviously we budget for 95% collection rate. So if we ended out the year at 96%, of course, I expect we would probably do more than that anyways, but so just make it easy. If we were 1% higher, then our operations would take in about, I'll just round these numbers up, around $24,000 more than what we budgeted. So that would be a $24,000 improvement to dues revenues, basically. And then for SURF, it would be, approximately $14,000. It's about $13,500 more than what we budgeted. So that's how much more we take into the SURF fund than what we were anticipating. For roads, it'd be real close to about $14,000 more that we would take into roads than what we anticipated. And that would be true for every single percent above 95%. So in terms of like numbers for net income numbers, so we came in, so that our operating net income for March year to date, so we'll just go ahead and focus on year to date at this point is, $118,825. We're about $57,500 under budget. What we budgeted, we would wind up March 2023 for year to date. Of course, these budgeted numbers are always projections. We're just, we're taking a best guess at what kind of expenses would hit during what months and what revenues will hit during certain months as well. Now, the year before this, just for comparison purposes, we were at 118,825 operating net income for March 2023. So March 2022, we were at 172,054. Then we were at about $37,484 worse than budget at the end of March of 2022 last year. Now, I have a really good idea of where we'll wind up for April at this point. So I've already calculated that April, at this point, we're tracking to come in. Of course, this is barring some sort of expenditures that start to roll into AP that we don't anticipate at this point. But I mean, that could happen. But what we're looking at so far for April is an operating net income of $218,550, which would actually, I think, versus April of 2022. So this is just, just in case you were thinking March doesn't look as great as what you would like to see for April. Once you skip ahead to April, since we're coming in April of 2023 at about, I'll just round these numbers up, at about $219,000 net income, operating net income. That would then put us in at about $48,500 better than budget at the end of April. Now, in April of 2022, we came in at $83,678, and we were at $66,638 worse than budget at the end of April 2022. So for April 2023, so the bottom line is we're tracking better at the end of April than we were tracking at the end of April the preceding year, which is great. Yeah, I do kind of share, I'll always usually share revenue to expense ratios. And then when I give this ratio, obviously a lower ratio is better. So for February, it was 72%, which just basically means that for every dollar of revenues that came in, we had 72 cents of expenditures. You could think about it like that. So February 2023, we had 72%. Last month, the end of March 2023, 88.2%. March of 2022 is at 83.3%. So we're tracking somewhat a little close to where we were March. But obviously the big takeaway is whenever net income is worse than a preceding year for that month, then our expense to revenue ratio would obviously be higher than that preceding year. So in April, if we keep going the way we're looking in April, our expense to revenue ratio will be less at the end of April 2023 than April 2022. Now, this next page is the capital reserve fund page. And of course, this is a really handy page because these are all the big reserve funds, SURF, roads, mailboxes. Obviously, we haven't spent anything out of mailboxes yet, but that's, we have reserve study on mailboxes. SURF and roads would be the two biggest ones. And then UDR is obviously the one that people focus on the most in terms of where we could possibly go back to the well, so to speak, to take some funding for something, especially as it relates to operations. But so then obviously we'll just focus on SURF, this top area is just all the revenues that come in, plus the expenditures, like this is cash outflows to cutting checks, for projects that have been approved by the board. Then down below, you have the 9-month outlook at 95% collection rate. And then surf loan payments, for the remainder of the year. And then obviously this is the big number right here, this obligated expenses holdings, 610,100. And now I'm just going to skip ahead real quick to oh, this is not the same file that, if you guys have like the capital reporting sheets that came along with the budget agenda, you would see that this 610,100 is the final obligated amount that we have as of the end of March 2023. So basically what this would be like all the projects that the board has approved minus what we paid on those projects, then obviously it would be the So we had a project that was 10,000, for example, it's the only project, and we've cut $5,000 worth of checks. Then this obligated expenses holdings would be 5,000. We're anticipating we'll spend another 5,000 because that's what was approved to be spent on that project. So this is what we're on the hook of, the hook for, so to speak, for all of SERP, 610,100. And then for roads, same thing, real close to 700,000. And then you take away like the board recommended carryover balance, which is just an amount that we would not want to fall under. And so it's 600,000 for SERP, 500,000 for roads, which then gives you the anticipated net usable cash that we're predicting to have at the end of the year, at the end of December of 2023. So when it comes to budgeting and stuff like that for like 10-year capital planning, this is the number that we're really looking at, and which rolls from one year to the next and so on and so forth. So in terms of, for all of these, basically, so SERP is a little up, roads is a little down, but in terms of like the total cash versus the same time, like March of 2022, but this is just a pure function of basically spending board approved expenditures for roads or SERP or UDR. And it's the same thing for UDR. So now the next two pages that I'll go over, and actually I think I'll just skip over this one, but this is the current month. So this is the income statement again, but it just shows you what departments are responsible for how much of that operating net income. This is March 1st to March 31st, but we'll go to the next page. It's the same format, but this is year to date. So this is January 1 to March 31, 2023. So here's the bottom line on this is here's that 118,825 operating net income. But then here you get to see the individual departments that make that up. So, and I'll go ahead and focus on golf because I always call out golf. Okay, so actual revenues for golf were close to 300,000, as you can see year to date. The prior year, they're at about 302,000, so they're very close to where they were last year revenue wise. Then total expenditures for golf would be, this is actual salary benefits, this amount here, plus the all other expenses here. These other two are just better or worse than budget, but those two combined to total expenses of 248,272. Last year at this time in March of 2022, year to date, they're at 195,307, which means they're about $53,000 higher expenditure wise than they were preceding year. Of course, we would expect to see that with salary and stuff like that. But you can see that their net income is about 51,190 for golf year to date. Last year, they're at close to 107,000. Of course, March was kind of a cold month as well. I know, so golf did not have the best March this year because of the weather, but that is turning around for golf. But bottom line is they're about $12,000 worse in budget. So I mean, they're pretty close to projections anyways. And of course, this will really pick up throughout the year now that we're into the warm season. But I'd say in terms of there's nothing really hugely over budget, under budget, one way or the other. Obviously, you'll see here, this is basically related to administration better than budget by 51,500, we'll say. And that's primarily some unfilled salary type savings. As you can see here, obviously salary, they're about 59,000 better than budget. But I would say pretty much that's the big takeaway for the financial statements. If anyone had any questions about.
Well, and the marina numbers won't actually come in until.
Yeah, I'll talk about Marina actually. Okay, so you see this so for Marina, you see how they're worse than budget by 107,285. Well, that basically that comes down to bad debt expense, meaning so all of these billings for all these slips and everything were done in February. So for Marina, just to put it into perspective. Okay. Yeah, so in terms of bad debt expense, so basically when we bill someone for something, we'll put it on our books as receivable, obviously. And if it hasn't been recouped or, paid within 30 days, and it's automatically written off as bad debt expense. And then let's just say the very next month, someone then pays that, then the opposite happens. So the bad debt expense gets reversed out. So for Marina to be worse than budget by 107,285 is largely due to because they to real close to $140,000 in bad debt expenses. That's just the money the billings that we haven't recouped yet from the billings in February. And I can already tell you that in April. So I know in April, we've already recouped $65,000 of those billings. So we'll get this money. It's just a timing issue at this point. It's just, we've already billed it, but since it's gone over 30 days, it's been written off and it shows up, it's basically turning into an expenditure, so to speak. But then once we get the money, then the reverse happens, and then you'll see this propping up operating net income. But that's a big drag on operating net income right there, that 107,000. And once that reverses out, then it has the opposite effect of helping out operating net income, which it's doing already in April. Linda?
I have a question. I asked it before last year when we started dealing with the marina. After about May or June, there was no payroll accounted to the marina, and we're doing it again this year. And I believe I got an answer from someone that said it's coming out of rec. Well, rec's under the special assessment, and the special assessment never included any monies to be spent toward any marina expenses at all. And so I'm wondering, although it's going to show that we have a nice balance in here as a profit, you also have nothing accounted for towards payroll unless admin is doing all of the billing for the boats and all that sort of thing.
Admin does do all the accounting, does bill for all the boats and everything. So we did discuss this last year because we put more money into rec than what the special assessment earns. So the money that you're talking about was more than offset by the budgeting because we hired additional rec employees. Previously, there had been, I think, one full-time employee and only another one part-time employee. We then hired 3 full-time employees, and also Joanne could probably tell you, but I can't even count how many seasonal employees that we've put down there. So they rotate out as needed between the recreation department and the marina. And so it's really going to depend on how busy the weekend is and what Joanne and that manager down there determine what they need. So because sometimes they may schedule 3 people to work the parking lot in the marina, and then it's just not busy, it's rainy or whatever, and they move them back over to the rec department. So it's a whole different way of budgeting and scheduling than what had been done previously. And also for this year's budget, you got to remember that special assessment ends. So we took all of that into account when this was budgeted.
So then after the special assessment's done, you will start seeing stuff in marina payroll then?
No, because it's the marina is under the recreation department. That staff works between all of our recreation. They work the sports fields, they work the fitness center, they work the marina. So they rotate as needed. They're trained to work at all of the areas.
Okay, and you're saying any of the money that's used to pay their payroll isn't out of the rec special assessments, it's out of any extra income they earn? Is that what I understood you to say?
I'm saying it's all a part of one pot, but there was a lot, we went over, the association paid more than what that rec special assessment took in last year to cover the recreation and the marina expenses. So
But they finished at a loss last year according to the balance
the
sheet.
association covers, it still comes out of operations.
That's true, but it's a special assessment that was approved. And like I say, yeah, you can say
Didn't
it
cover
comes
the
out of rec.
additional employees. That special assessment didn't cover the expenses. That's why you're saying it finished at a loss,
Mhm.
because you're looking at the special assessment. So the association covered the difference for the additional employees and expenses. We covered that, the association, out of our operational account.
Then it should have finished with just a zero balance.
You're looking at the accounting for the special assessment.
How do I say
So the
this?
special assessment is a separate accounting, the separate field than the additional operational expenses.
Okay, I'll take a look at the budget and see if I have
Okay.
any more questions.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I mean, so the marine, recreation, obviously rec pools, parks it's, and on the full financial statements, of course, it's all combined together in one, basically consolidated income statement. So when you see in fact, just go to it right here.
But I think she's talking about the end of the year breakdown where you go special assessment and how the special assessment ends. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you look on the balance sheet, it's got that, a minute, hold on. Rec special assessment, it has it as December 31, 2022. It finished 2,500 in the hole.
Right. And that amount comes from all the rec pools and parks.
That's why I'm saying, and Marina has its own department and recs and the pools and trails all have theirs. And it's just, I'm concerned that we're spending some of that money on something that wasn't covered under the special assessment. And I'll go back and take a look at the budget where
Because
I'll
when
see.
we manage, that we make a determination of how best to spend that, how we allocate our resources, and that includes the human resources. So we determined that we needed more staffing to cover the marina. We didn't need one person sitting down at the marina, just hanging out with community members. What we needed is staff down there directing traffic and being out in the field when it's busy. So we made a determination to adjust how that money was being spent. So that money was put back. The money you're talking about for the marina was spent hiring more rec employees and utilizing more rec employees at the marina. You actually got more staff and more coverage than what had happened previously.
Special assessments or special assessments?
We didn't touch the special assessment.
Okay,
We put
I'll-
money
I'll-
into the department.
I'll take a look at the budget. Should make sense. What you're saying should make sense, to be clear. I have one more question for Joel. It's really weird because I'm here looking at the balance sheet now. And we've done this for forever, but a lot of times you go back and look at the year before, you go back and look at March of 2022. Where we do the comparisons here, is there some reason why instead of using December 31, we can't use March 31, 2022 to show the comparison of really what was it a year ago?
Well,
Is
I mean-
there a reason for that?
yeah, usually with balance sheets, of course, like we're showing December 31, 2022, like you pointed out. Then to show March, what we're really highlighting here is the increase, decrease from the prior accounting closing period, which for us is 2022, the end of
Yeah.
2022 fiscal year.
Okay, I just wondered because we often refer back and then it's just something you tell us. It's not anything we can.
So is
see.
it something that maybe you could, just like you do the capital reports, that maybe you could just do that in the future? Just to do that and, like track it with a chart or something monthly like that, if possible.
Well, I mean,
If you could consider it, you don't have to answer me right now.
Just a question. I'm done. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to new business.
Thanks, Joel.
So, here. All right, so the first item in new business is approval of a 50th anniversary committee members. What were the names? No. Colleen. Okay, Brian, you got 'em?
Yeah, first of all, the second board member, I'd like to put forward Sonia. And then 4 other community members. On the committee. Liz Vidal, Ann Cole, Tony Palmatac, and Colleen Mitchell.
Any objections?
Anyone else like to participate on the committee? Okay, well, I tried.
Yeah, Michael Wadsworth originally. Yeah, he was originally the second. Always add him next.
All right, so then the next item on the agenda was continuing discussions on ad hoc committees. So just like the other ad hoc committees, I just wanted to have kind of a preliminary discussion with the board to determine if we want to move forward and do any work on drafting a formal charter for an emergency preparedness committee. Michael had sent requests for this to be on the agenda. The board had gotten some emails from community members as well with stuff. Yeah, I guess I'd just open it up for a general discussion on the topic. I think Joanne had some comments on it though.
Yeah, when I originally heard that the association had in the past chartered a committee to do work in the area of emergency preparedness, I was surprised because there are state and federal agencies that are tasked very directly with performing that work. And I thought that it was important to research the legal basis and the potential legal ramifications for sponsoring such a committee. So after doing my own nosing about and confirming it with our legal counsel, I can say very confidently that an HOA has absolutely no legal requirement to engage in emergency preparedness. Often there's no legal requirement, but people or organizations choose to do something anyway because it's a good thing. So you also have to look at the flip side of the coin, right? Just because there's not a requirement doesn't mean it might not be a good thing, right? Unfortunately, when you start in the area of emergency preparedness, looking at, well, what would happen if we just because we thought it was a good idea, went ahead and did some work in the area of emergency preparedness. The problem with that is it dramatically increases our risk of liability. Emergency situations by their nature are risky, and they can result in injury or death. If Sudden Valley decided to take on and have its own emergency planning, it would be essentially creating a liability where none existed in the law. And it would be doing so in situations that are fraught with danger. What would happen then is a plaintiff could assert that SVSA was negligent in developing the plan, and that our negligence resulted in their injury. For such an action to be successful, they'd have to demonstrate that we owed a duty to them and that we breached the duty, and that the breach was the cause of the damages that resulted. If we don't have a plan and the law says we don't need a plan, there would be no basis for owing that person, a duty. But if we decide as an organization to go ahead and create a plan, we create a liability, and we create a liability in the worst possible situation. Every single day, folks call me and the front office, the administrative office, to ask for services that an HOA is not supposed to supply. And there is a general impression that the association provides many services which it does not. So I think that it's important to remind ourselves and to remind the community that homeowners associations' primary purposes are to maintain common areas, collect assessments to maintain the common areas, and to promote social and community activities. We're not a security force. We're not an emergency preparedness planning group. We don't give advice on landscaping. There's a bunch of things we just are not empowered to do.
We actually do.
We have rules on landscaping, but we don't advise on plant selection or, what the deer won't eat necessarily, although that's broadly available and meant to be a little lighthearted here. But the idea is that in the area of emergency preparedness, it's a very, it could be a very costly decision to make to engage in that area and to take on the responsibilities for providing for the public safety, which are no part of our mandate. In fact, in Whatcom County, the sheriff's office is designated as the group that's in charge of emergency planning. And the county code, if you want to look it up, is chapter 2.4. It's all about emergency management. But there you have it. Thanks.
All right, any other discussion? Timey?
Well, I mean, I do have a different perspective on it. And while each of us here today would hope that we are never in a situation where we need to implement an emergency safety plan, we would all be grateful should that need arise and our community members are kept safe. There is a group of experienced and knowledgeable professionals who are ready to volunteer on the Emergency Preparedness Committee. These talented and dedicated people have a concern for our community safety and are committed to this planning effort and to Sudden Valley. As a board, I believe it is our duty to do the best for the residents of the community. I believe that includes reinstating the EPC and supporting these professionals in developing and sharing a plan to help us best weather any emergency. And, honestly, a few years ago, I didn't even understand. As a long-term resident of Sudden Valley, I thought, I'm down by the water, I'm safe. That's not necessarily true. And I think just having a committee that can give information should, that worst case scenario happen, I think that can be invaluable.
So going back to what the board's responsibility is, it's to mitigate the risk and liability to the association and to maintain those common areas and fund them appropriately. As Joanne was saying, the emergency preparedness for Whatcom County in this area is handled through the Whatcom County Department of Emergency Management and coordinated through the Sheriff's Department. All we have to do is look back to when we had that big flood event at the end of 2021, and it shows how well all of that coordinates. We coordinated directly with them until their communication system went down, and then we coordinated via the firehouse here in Sudden Valley, and also our radios because our system went down. We followed all of the instructions they gave us. We need to look to them to tell us what we do. And people were contacting us asking, well, do I evacuate? Water's coming up. They're the ones, we can't issue evacuation orders. We can't make evacuation plans. We have to follow the instructions of the law, which is it comes from Whatcom County and via the Sheriff's Department. That is the only organization that has the authority to issue evacuation instructions. And like during the flood event, they gave us instructions to shelter in place, not to come out because there were too many people being trapped in cars, and they were having to do lots of water rescues and everything. So in the moment, there's these things, you can't just be put on a piece of paper and age on a shelf. They change a lot. These are the experts that we have to look to and depend on. That being said, there's nothing that prevents us from just putting that information, the Whatcom County information, onto the website so it's easily accessible so that members can have a better understanding of, what they should do to protect themselves. And then I know that Joanne's drafting a communications plan that just ensures that no matter who is on here available during an emergency, that the proper lines of communication continue. So yeah, I'm opposed to creating this committee, and I'm totally opposed to the charter as it was presented to us, which also violates our bylaws.
Yeah, Nancy, then Keith.
Oh, sorry, I
You
didn't-
first, Keith. I don't know. I didn't.
Oh, no, it doesn't. Go ahead. Yeah, go.
I didn't even look behind. Okay. The proposed committee is asking for the board to give them authority that the board does not have. That authority belongs to Whatcom County. There's no way we can authorize a committee with the terms of that charter. In the past, the idea of that particular committee was to negotiate a contract with the county, and that went on. The board gave them authority, and the negotiations went on for a little over a year. And in the end, the county declined to sign that agreement. The emergency preparedness plan that's on our website is written assuming the county had signed, and the county didn't. There's no authority there for that plan because the board could not give it. So the way I look at it is the county does little enough for us around here. Why are we asking them to do even less by taking on an emergency preparedness task?
I think besides EPC and safety plans, I think we should have a safety plan. And the only one I've seen has got EPC written on it. So it's like, I think it's important if the county takes a lead, we still owe it to the membership to inform them, this is what you do. There's nothing like that there. The other thing that they used to do that I love, they developed a program, I believe it was just a year before they were gone, that was called To Go Bags. And they invited families and owners in to come and get them, no cost to the association. It was a nice time. They offered different informative programs around just safety in your own home, that sort of thing.
It did cost the association. We funded that committee.
Oh, all right. I didn't think there was, I know there was 1610 was funded, but I don't remember any money for the to-go bags. But the whole thing is that it's that kind of thing that can be offered that hopefully maybe they could Like you see different things offered at like the fire station, usually in Geneva, but different things where they could come out and maybe if they can get enough people together, have training out here in the valley. And it's just for that reason, I think they have a lot of worth. Also, our website is filled with EPC all over it and it needs to go away if you're gonna make it go away, because you say it's a liability.
Well, it
That-
hasn't existed for many years, Linda, even before any of us were on the board. That committee stopped 4 years ago
You sure about
under
that?
Paula Birchler. She never held a meeting.
Oh, that's true. I remember because she left. She left the association. And then the second board member never followed up after that. But it's just, I'm just saying, I think that there's a value of having that sort of thing. I know the ham radio club has started up again and it's nice to see. You know, we have all the signs all over the valley for 1610. What's gonna happen with that? Do we need to take the signs down because it's not active? I don't know. But there's things that we've put in motion that if we're definitely gonna make stuff go away, then we need to think about the ramifications and not have stuff posted all over the website and signs all over the valley.
Keith and Brian.
I was in agreement, I think, with Linda, and maybe it's more just the community needs to know how to get out of gates like in emergencies and stuff like that. Maybe not necessarily a committee that's running all the time, but maybe we could have Whatcom Fire here or something twice a year, showing exit routes. For instance, gate 2, I only know of one way. I mean, I know how I would get out of an emergency, but there's only one way in and out. You know, and you're gonna have animals, deer, trees burning. You know, the entering, the median there is just full of debris that's burnable, you know, so stuff like that. So for me, that's what I'd be concerned about. What's Whatcom County may have a plan, that's great, but how do I get out of gate 2?
Well, I think that's a question for Whatcom County.
Well, no,
We have no jurisdiction over their roads.
Oh, no, I understand that. No, I'm saying, if I would care less who was in my way if I had to get out and my family's life depended on it, I'll tell you that. No, but what I'm saying, it'd be nice if maybe they came out with a map and showed, you know, here's gate 1, here's your entrance, here's your exit emergency. We're gonna open this road, this logging road, or, you know, service road here to get you out or something like that.
I mean, I guess, sorry not to cut you. Go ahead, Brian. Or are you done?
Well, no, I'm just saying, you know, based on the size of our community, it is a large community, and I'm sure Whatcom County, you know, I worked in the fire department for years in California, and we do this kind of stuff. And so we would go out to HOAs and give them advice, not necessarily help them set up a committee or anything like that, but let them know of the quick way, the ingress, egress out, and what we're counting on, what we're looking for as a fire department. We're coming in a certain way, we're expecting certain things. And typically the fire department is proactive in wanting to do that, to educate this community on that.
Yeah. I don't think that's an inherently bad thing, but I think we need them to educate the community on that, not
Agreed.
committee.
Agreed. Yeah, that's what I mean. You have them come in and educate you know, have it on a Saturday or whatever, so the community can come into the barn here or whatever and see the map, see how they would get out and, you know, talk, meet the people, stuff like that.
Linda made a good point about the 1610 as being, and I look at it as an example of a defunct system that's no longer working, that was produced by a group of volunteers. And you know, apparently that station.
No, that's what she was saying, that's the ham radio. So they just started meeting again.
But their
that's where
meetings
they sit.
sporadically, they just started meeting again. So if there was, you know, so in other words, it's unreliable. And if we're relying upon volunteers who aren't liable, who have no legal liability, who are gonna be here one day and then not here another day, it's going to create confusion. And those, you know, the bumper stickers and the other signs that 1610 are using. Yeah. And one of the reasons why I don't support,
I was just gonna say, it's confusing enough that I thought it was being run by the ham radio group. So you know, Joanne?
Yes, I do. The equipment is located in the fire station, but the fire station can't hold a license. So the ham radio station the Ham Radio Club holds the license. And I don't know, when was the last time any of you guys listened to AM radio or FM radio for that matter?
I love sports radio.
Do you? Well, you're an outlier.
Say, wait a minute here.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
Luddite,
it's over
right
satellite
here.
now.
I don't know. I mean, radio, I don't even,
Not AM.
not AM, whatever, but, yeah, so the ham radio has to be operated specifically in an emergency. It's not like always going, right? There's nobody there. And, you know, Brian's point is well taken. If the volunteers can't get to the radio, it doesn't operate, so it's not reliable. The communication channels we're running, online, you know, our internet connection could go down here, but I still have my phone and I can still operate the application to send an e-blast. We also instituted the hotline, which we need to develop much further to make it more relevant to the community in times when it's not snowing. But that hotline relies on a technology that's almost universally available and tends not to go down with the cellular network. So those are immediately controllable things that we could do from anywhere to communicate out. So I feel like those are just more reliable channels.
I did read through a manual for emergency planning that was done by professionals of many degrees, and it was really layered, and it was rather extensive, and it definitely looked closer to FEMA than it did to our homeowners association. And what it showed to me was the requirement for constant staff training, which is fire department and people working for the county and for the state and for the federal government. And they have people trained nonstop that mobilize and go to an area, because they don't do that everywhere either. But it was really extensive, the thing that I saw. And it's like, yes, and they were professionals, and it was 100 pages, and it covered a lot, even covered language on radios. And then as I saw that, I realized our staff is trained to do certain things and nothing close to what that was laying out. And in order to get there, well, then we would have to hire people that are capable of doing that, which if you look at our staff versus take a look at firefighters, and even in their physical stature, we don't match up. We do have people at different times that can do some things, but in order to train and match up to that professional manual, way beyond our level, and the extent of that is very expensive. That's why that goes to the states and the feds. I did work for FEMA for a little while as a rescue team, and we were trained just to go in and do a certain thing and do a quick search and possibly dig people out and use cranes. My part was rigging and cranes, but we were only to be there 6 weeks or less. And then after that, it was just a recovery. It was no more rescue. And we actually had our own physician that would travel with us and not be part of anyone else. It was only to keep this team active and healthy. And it was pretty interesting, but we traveled, we had zones, and you didn't always get called because they didn't need you. It's like, but they had people that they trained in zones around the country to do this. And it was rather extensive. You know, they relied on my construction skills as an iron worker and the crane rigging. And that's what put us in there. We were on teams with engineers and firefighters, and we all had our little niche, and that's how the teams were set up. So that the professionals, they really did lay that out, and it's way beyond our skill sets here to do anything like that. And that's why the fire department's got their gig in the county, and they actually have a lot of people they train, and they also will bring them from other parts of the state or the country. And there's things, you know, that obviously in any situation, people are going to have to take care of themselves for a little bit if it's a massive event. It's just how it is. We don't have the capacity, and our staff, it's like, would they even be here? Would anybody be here at the right time And it's like, did they go home? It's like, so we're trying to rely on a lot of what ifs, and if everything worked, it could be all right. But it's really marginal what we have for people. It's like our best thing to do is make sure that if there's something going on, that we don't have our heavy equipment in a spot where it could burn down. And those are simple steps we got to take, just like they did in the flood zones and hurricane zones. They learned it's like get everything out on wheels and use the buses, schools to load people and get them out and keep the buses going. They don't go back. And it's like all their equipment, they learn to get them out of the area so they could come back and use that equipment rather than have it get torn up in the hurricane or floods. So we have some equipment that could actually help if there wasn't anyone around. And so that at times when we see that, it's like that'd be the only thing we would need to be sure of doing. It's like park it out in the most open spot of the golf course. And there's just a few simple things to do with that, and a generator or two that would keep that Sudden Valley E-Blast active. So some simple basic things for that communication line. It's way better to do that, because otherwise I've seen all of our staff, and I wouldn't expect them to do what is in that training manual, not even close to that. And then the other part is there are like nurses living out here, doctors, and they're going to jump in and do what they do in a time of crisis. But you can't count on them. It's my wife does that, and she's not going to start doing training for that. She would just be, if she's here or if something's happening, she's going to be there in a heartbeat, but she won't be part of a program doing that because she is trained. And, that's just how somebody's going to go. And then the other part is everyone does need to do certain things for themselves at their house. They need to know where they're going to go for things. They need to consider it. And then there's people that would have trouble. I used to have a neighbor that I picked up off her garage floor because she had fallen and couldn't get up, and I heard some noise and it went over. She'd been down for a day. And those people need neighbors. So that's just up to neighbors, to know their neighbors a little bit, and then find out who could need a hand, to get out. And there are some people here that could use a helping hand, and there's a lot of neighbors next to them that could do it, but we cannot start putting any of those people on a list that could be handed around too, because then that puts them in harm's way. So all this stuff, it takes a lot of caution and as we said about liability, but common sense things. We can't put out word that somebody is disabled and then we have an address. It's like we can't do that stuff. So we have to be very careful and really think a lot about our neighbors. And I have some neighbors that are stronger in back than I am, but I'm way better with tools than they are, and I teach them things. And if something was to happen, I've coached my neighbors on various things, and I trained a lot of apprentices in my life, and that's it. It's like, help your neighbors when you can, and realize that that's where it's going to happen. And some of these committees, you feel good. But I have a feeling it would be an effort that's just going to drain our staff, and we won't get the results when we need it. Thank you.
I'll just make a few points on the topic myself. I think it is pretty clear in statutes and county code that Whatcom County and the Division of Emergency Management has the authority to deal with evacuations, flooding events, emergency plans. I think what Sam said is 100% accurate. I work for the county. I participate in portions of the emergency plans, particularly as it relates to flooding, as part of public works. And I will tell you that during a flooding event, there are hundreds of Whatcom County employees out in the county actively working, doing things basically 24/7 during those massive flood events. Like, we do not have the staff. All these people are trained yearly in their various different disciplines. You have EMS, you have fire, you have police, you have the EOC people running the operations. You have public works supporting, closing roads, monitoring the river, people knocking on doors, telling people to evacuate once those orders are given, getting sand to people that need sandbags on private property, helping do sandbag efforts. It's a huge thing. There's a lot of ICS training that goes into it. I think our staff, the expectation, if something like, let's say a wildfire happened, the expectation would then be that our staff have to drive into the blaze to come execute some sort of emergency plan or something like that. It's just not very productive. I don't think that's what we would want to be happening. I think we should I think the community should, if there's a big drive for that, I think the community should leverage their individual power with the county to ask for, like what Keith was talking about. There's nothing stopping us from getting the county to come out here with emergency management center or the fire chief or whoever it is to show the community that there is a plan for evacuation. It's organized chaos when stuff like that happens. Lake Louise Road is a 2-lane road in both directions. Lake Whatcom Boulevard is a 2-lane road, which turns into a 4-lane road at one point, all of which can be used in one direction, evacuating people. So like there is the ability to increase capacity to drive people to town, stuff like that in shorter time frames. I'm sure of that. Obviously they have to have plans to coordinate that effort with sheriff's department and dealing with traffic control, things like that. I would also say there's the Department of Emergency Management has a CERT team, a Sudden Valley CERT team. If there are people who are so gung-ho about doing emergency preparedness, then go do it with the professionals. They need volunteers. So, it's like if you're unwilling to do it with the people who are actually responsible for it, then I just considering it virtue signaling at this point. So that is a whole program which you could join. You can volunteer. They will train you. They will teach you. You can even volunteer in the Emergency Operations Center too. They are always taking volunteers to help in those efforts. They always need people, but I think the main things are it's not in our authority and purview, not part of a purpose of the HOA. I think Sam hit the nail on the head with like what it would require from our staff to put them into these positions for something that we're not responsible for doing, and that there is already a process in place that's ready to be utilized for this exact purpose in the CERT team.
That's what I wanted to say too. Part of EPC when they were formed before is a bunch of people in the valley have their CERT training. There's a CERT a little over in the parking lot of the fire station. There's a whole thing that they set up. There's a little trailer that they set up. I also had a question. There used to be Red Cross materials here that used to be kept in the adult center in the sauna area. When it wasn't a sauna, it was just a closet. And I don't know what's ever happened to all those materials or if anyone even stays in touch with the Red Cross anymore. And that was just in this discussion, it made me think of that.
Yeah, and I mean, even in the charter that a community member wrote, like they wanted to go in and they were asking us for the authority to go in and inventory the CERT trailer. It's not our trailer. We didn't pay for it. We don't own it. We don't have any authority over it. Some of the requests were just strange. And it's if you want to be a part of the CERT trailer and everything involved with, then join the CERT team. I think it's a much more productive use of everyone's resources and time, and it provides them the ability to directly impact the professionals who are responsible for, implementing, creating and developing such plans.
Just so there's no confusion on Facebook, the association did contribute heavily to that CERT trailer, the funding of it, and through like donations and everything. So I just wanted to clarify that. So even though that the association helped raise the funds for that, what to just agree with AJ, we don't own it. It doesn't belong to us. It's under the control of the fire station.
Any further discussion? Guess we'll just, maybe make a vote whether we would move forward with preparing a charter for an EPC committee. Guess we'll just do all those in favor of creating a charter. Timmy and Linda, all those opposed? And everybody else. All right, so no EPC. All right, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the capital requests. First one on the agenda is Area Z Tall Barn refurbishment. That's to Joanne.
Thank you. The purpose is to request funding approval for the Area Z Tall Barn. The Area Z Tall Barn is a pole building with existing metal siding and metal roof that is approximately 40-foot long by 30-foot wide. The existing siding and roof are at the end of their life cycle and need to be replaced. Minor leaks have started and replacement is needed to preserve the wood framings of the structure and to preserve the assets that are stored inside the building. Right now, the Tall Barn stores a road mower, the hydrovac trailer, and some other assets. In 2023, it was discovered that the Area Z Tall Barn was not on our reserve study. The replacement of the roof and the siding to preserve the building will extend its useful life. This provides maintenance department with additional dry storage and security protection for some assets. The project would also rebuild the existing doors to substantially increase their functionality, so we could get bigger stuff in there. SBCA will work with a reserve specialist to ensure that the building is added in the 2024 update. So the request is for the authorization of $59,475.20 from SURF for the refurbishment of the Area Z Tall Barn per P&W's proposal dated 5/21/23. And we would also ask that you authorize me to execute the contract, awarding this project to Cool Runnings Construction with a not to exceed amount of $55,060.20.
All right, any discussion? Keith and Timmy?
My only question is, how did this 1,200 square foot building get missed in a reserve study?
I think the plan was to tear it down. It was, I think that was part of it when they were talking about rebuilding the entire maintenance building. I think they were thinking that a lot of that equipment would either go into that bubble, thing. And also that the original plan for the expanded maintenance building was going to add a shop type area. And that's not, we're refurbishing the footprint for that maintenance building. And then Mike utilizes uses the other building like for the snow storage or whatever, sand, etc.
The moist bubble?
Yeah. Well, they figured out how to, they've managed to get the moisture under control. They took the ends off to allow for the air circulation, but it'll still protect the
Okay, so I assume then the foundation and everything is fine on this building, right?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah, just the outer
Yeah, the shop.
envelope, yeah.
Is there a slab? Or is it dirt?
Does it have a foundation? Sam.
That could just be a footing.
Timmy?
All right, well, I have two questions. The first one is if we put this money into this tall barn, you say we're extending the life of the building. Do we have any idea of how long we would extend that life, because it's obviously not a new building. It is an old building. And so my second question is, did we look or consider like rather than refurbishing a very old building, did we look at the cost of putting in a new pole barn?
There's nothing wrong with the substructure. It's literally just the envelope that surrounds it. The shell, the outer shell has degraded. So it would certainly be more costly to tear down what's there and rebuild it from the ground up. So this effort was made to extend the useful life of something that still has a useful life. As I've said, the internals of it are sound. And there are buildings in parts of the country that are hundreds of years old that continue to be resided and re-roofed, and they continue to be functional. So there's no reason to believe that we wouldn't extend it to the full life of the new roof or a metal roof. Keith, what would you say?
You get another 25, 40 years. I don't know what roof you're putting on it, but have lifespan.
Yeah, the metal roofs are extremely long-lived, so.
It just looks like it's really deteriorated. So I was just wondering, did we consider at all how much the difference would be between just putting a new building as opposed to just refurbishing?
Well, to answer your question directly, no, because we knew that it would be much more costly to do that, as opposed to just simply reskinning the building that's already there.
I have a strange question. Me who reads everything. On page 16, there's a whole thing where it says Area Z Tall Barn, the estimate for bid package and construction management. And right above the table, it says pavement marking scope.
Yeah, I saw that too, Linda. That was a leftover, sorry.
Just, I want to make sure this isn't.
We will not be marking any pavements.
Marking, because it could be either.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Saw Stu, and I don't know if there's someone else.
Yeah, part of the estimate, I guess, from PNW is indicating $10,000 for wood repair. So if the pole barn wood structure is good shape, what are we repairing?
The framing for the extension of the door height.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, I think we have two motions to make here, so bear with me. I'll move that the board of directors approve the allocation of $59,475.20 from the SURF fund for the Area Z Tall Barn refurbishment project. Any discussion on that? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. And the second motion would be that I move that the board of directors authorize the general manager, Joanne Jensen, to execute Sun Valley Standard Construction Contract, awarding this project to Cool Runnings Construction in the not to exceed amount of $55,060.20. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Looks like that passes unanimously.
Can I ask a question I didn't catch? I apologize. Why is the construction contract a just slightly different amount than the,
That PNW.
oh, I missed it. We're paying them separate. Duh. Okay, never mind. Thank you, Linda.
All right. The next capital item is Marina Boat Launch. I'll pass back to Joanne.
Thank you. The purpose of this is to request additional funding for capital code 9719.20, which is for the Marina Boat Launch Dock. On 3/12/20, an emergency SURF request was submitted to SVCA's board for the replacement of the Marina Boat Launch Dock. For your reference, we've attached the capital request that was made. The project was approved in the amount of $53,929. On May 13th, 21, the boat launch dock was noted as being completed by SVCA staff. In 2022, it was discovered that the installed boat launch dock had been permitted incorrectly and failed to meet ADA requirements. Since this discovery, SVCA has worked with Whatcom County to correct the permitting and design an ADA compliant boat launch dock. In 2020, the non-compliant and non-permitted dock was removed, leaving the two pilings still in place. Ashton Engineering Incorporated was engaged to design an ADA compliant boat launch dock with access from the gravel parking lot. SVCA submitted a shoreline substantial development permit to Whatcom County, and upon issuance in January of 2023, started design. On March 30th, the design was completed and a commercial building permit was submitted to Whatcom County. You can reference P&W's attachment to this request dated 5/21 for a summary of the new dock design. As of May 17th, SVCA has spent $41,564, leaving $12,365 available from the original capital request that was approved on 3/12/20. The $41,564 spent to date covered the original project costs that were not refunded from Lakeside Marine, which is basically the two pilings that were left installed. And it also covered the cost of the shoreline substantial development permit application and fees and the design costs so far. The 2023 budget includes an additional $52,000 for this project, which brings us to $64,365 in budgeted funds that are still available. P&W's estimate dated 5/21 totals $225,255.97 to complete the project, including the payment for permits and installation. This would require an additional $160,890.97 from SURF to be allocated for the completion of the project. If approved, this request would allow P&W to issue the project for bid. Once bids are received, the project would then come back to the board for contract approval. So I propose that the board authorize an additional $212,890.97 in project funds from SURF for completing Capital Code 9719.20. And request that the same amount, $212,890.97, be allocated from SURF to increase the funds for Capital Code 9719.2.
Any discussion, Sam?
Yeah, earlier in the meeting, member comments was asked questions about the fabrication and questions about the cost of this. And the thing that I can relate in my experience is this is a one-off. And welding aluminum is not something you just pop together and pull out my little cheap wire machine and go out in the public and do that. It's takes quite a setup to do that. Plus, it's all a one-off thing. So the scope of scale, if we were to be making 100 of them, we could get them a lot less. But since it is a one-off, it's going to cost more. I experienced that over the years and on jobs where we had to get replacement trim for some exterior finishes on some buildings, and they were $10 pieces of trim, but somebody had run some over to get them replaced. If they were no longer in production, they had to stop and custom make them. It was $1,200. It was about $400 a piece, each piece of trim, but it had to be done that way and matched up. And so anyway, so that's where some of this stuff comes into play too. It's like so one of a kind, and these guys, we didn't get a lot of bids back, it looks like, and and of course, it's substantial work down in the water, next to the water. So we could stall and probably shop to get something a lot less if we could, but then I don't think folks would be too happy about that. So it's kind of one of them things where some of this stuff, once again, it happened with that bridge at the golf course that we had to get things moving, and you got to bite the bullet there and get it done, because some of it won't get any cheaper. And so that's all I got.
Jaime, then Sonia, then Nancy. Sorry,
Okay, well, I got a couple of issues. There's a lot of information here. And obviously, each dock is going to be a one-off because the shore is going to be different at every spot. there was just so much information here. We were left two pilings from the original dock that was removed. And for me, it just seems that this is really over-engineered. And I don't know, but I got this Tuesday night and I have not had a lot of time to thoroughly look at this and to ask questions of an engineer of why we need all of this. Obviously, we need ADA compliance, which I'm 100% in favor of, but this just is so much higher than anything that I would have expected. And we're being asked to allocate funds without any bids coming in. This is an estimate. So if we all already allocate these funds, I mean, it's a done deal.
No, we have to execute a contract still.
Well,
There's-
still, once that
That's how we
money,
always
that's
do
what it's. gonna-
projects. We
that's what's
allocate
gonna-
funds so that no contractor is going to bid on a project of ours if we haven't allocated any funds to it. Why would they do that? That shows the board's not serious about the projects because they're not willing to fund it unless it like comes back in some package. And just a reminder to people that the design, Ashton Engineering, these are professional licensed engineers who come up with they're stamped and sealed documents, the design, the specifications in the package. It's not really our responsibility to, as a board, to make sure you understand everything in the specifications. That's the engineer's job. He has stamped it and certified it that it's in a state such that it can be built by a contractor in the proper way, and that we'll get the product that we want at the end of the day. So I just want to remind people of that the estimate comes from a licensed professional who is bound by an ethical license and ethical codes. Like he can't just fabricate a engineer's estimate that's, inflated because he wants to.
Sure, I 100% agree with that. I do believe that. And sorry, Linda.
Well, if that's how you feel, then I would suggest maybe you contact the professional engineering licensures and report the engineer, I guess.
I don't want to
because-
report them. I just want to understand why this is so much higher than any one of us would have expected it. It is like more than triple what the original only a year ago, and costs have gone up, but not that much. And I understand there's components that we need, but this is it just seems so out of whack from what any of us would have expected, for me anyway.
Well, I mean, I'll just say when professionals tell you what you need to do, a lot of times it does end up costing more than if we try to put something in without permits and things like that. And the county's reviewing this and saying that this meets the codes, the laws, the requirements. This isn't done in a vacuum by an engineer. There is not only just the county, there's I'm sure with being the proximity of the water, we're dealing with other permitting agencies as well. So there's numerous reviews of looking at this. So, I mean, it's not cheap, and we're going to be having some budget planning meetings in the future here coming up where we're going to have to talk about more things that aren't cheap. I think Sonia, then Nancy, then Keith.
Okay, so yeah, I just also wanted to agree with AJ on this and just remind everybody, first of all, this is the engineer's estimate. It comes from, they document, cost currently. They have a algorithm and a system and resources to help them come up with this planning. And they also are adhering to the Whatcom County codes for Lake Whatcom. So yes, it was a surprise. Part of it has to do with inflation and material costs have gone up. But again, you got to remember what you're comparing it to was that there was an unpermitted residential dock put out there. And unfortunately, that person represented to that board that that was a fully covered amount, that it was going to be permitted, et cetera. Instead, we ended up with an unfinished dock that was a safety hazard. And so some of this is because we had to deal with that. There was a lot of expenses. This is why you have to do things correctly. And all of that being said, as AJ mentioned, we are gonna, when we go and look at the other docks, the wet slip docks, when it's time to plan for those gangways are also not ADA compliant, yet they're more heavy duty than that residential dock that was put out there. They don't meet the county standards either. So when we go to upgrade and build those out, we're going to be required to change out those gangways too at a much greater expense than it was originally done. So, you know, what will happen though is this will go out to multiple contractors. It doesn't mean they have to come in at that dollar amount. Some of them may come in lower, and we generally go with the lowest bidder. So just thought I would throw that in there.
Just curious, what is the useful life of a dock like that? And how much continuing maintenance is it going to incur? Any ideas?
50 years?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, but I would imagine a steel dock would last at least 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
At least, yeah.
We're
We got
talking
aluminum
aluminum.
lots of this thing.
Aluminum
Yeah. It's,
forever.
it's gonna be,
If nobody
Okay.
slams it and actually drives into it, it'll be strong enough to hold the load that we put on it. That's what all this engineering's about. I've seen aluminum stuff and I've seen it installed in for particular reasons. I don't know, a water treatment plant I worked on. Aluminum was used on these things and there were a football field across these things to help work on clearing up water. We'll let go at that, but they used aluminum and this is around, you know, and some of those things was toxic environment and it was caustic and they use aluminum and not stainless steel, they use aluminum also for the lightweight. But then there is a cost. Aluminum costs a lot more than steel, especially strong enough to do what we're asking it to do. And then to weld aluminum, it requires a very clean environment. The steel or the aluminum has to be cleaned thoroughly. It's special stuff. And it's just not something that's laying around. It's a little different than some little simple thing at the house, you know. It's like it's a big deal. It'll be plenty strong, and that's how it'll hold up. And then their requirements, as I was reading through there, non-treated lumber, because actually some of this lumber that yellow, whatever they have in there, it's hold up better against the water. Besides the fact we're not allowed to use treated wood contact with the lake, and that stuff is all good. It's like the concrete now has to be done right and to make sure that it holds up, and it's the rebar inside that's going to be a little different rebar than a regular slab, because once again, it's next to the water. So there's another cost, and the concrete's going to have to be a lot more durable. So there's cost involved with that. And so that's where the stuff starts to run up. But the whole setup, there could be a couple of things that maybe you have to deal with, like the roller plates or the slide plates, depending on what they use. Sometimes those eventually will wear enough. It's like a nylon rub plate where the water level goes up and down and the thing moves and rubs on that. But those are used on bridges that don't get replaced forever. So I expect this work actually to hold up for longer than I'll know about.
That's kind of what I wanted to hear. It's a lot of money, and I wanted to be reassured that this was something that was going to last. So thank you.
Can I make one? I'm sorry, I know I'm out of turn, but I do want to say this is a dock that's not just used by community members too, right? Like this dock is used by the public. We can make money by attracting them here, you know, the non-dudes revenue for them dropping their boats and launching from here too. So some of this money can be recouped a little bit.
I think Keith was next, and then I don't remember who was that.
Has this been submitted for permit already?
Yeah.
It has, yeah. So changing at this point would be foolish anyway. So yeah, my question was going to be on value engineering, and I'm sure you're familiar with that on structures, but this structure is so unique and so specific. I can't see that helping a lot. But going to Rob's point, doing a lot of ADA, you do have to have rails for cross slope. And I'm not sure how they do that on a dock. That was an interesting question I had, how they were going to handle that. I agree with Rob, having rails on both sides is overkill. If we could get by with, and now again, it's going to be too late because it's already submitted, but just having the barrier on the one side and the rail on one side.
Rails on both sides, because picture yourself. Maybe you had a couple extra sodas while you're out there on the boat.
Okay, but I'm,
And you're carrying a big old ice chest over your shoulder, and then there's somebody coming up or down, depending on the direction you're going, with a walker. And somebody bumps somebody,
yeah,
and either way, they're off of there, because there is a,
figure this out with railings on both sides. It's pretty hard to get on and off that
well,
unless you're climbing over the rail.
you won't be climbing over them on the dock. The dock will be a regular boat dock where you don't, there's never rails on the actual floating dock.
This is
You
just the
don't do
gang
that
point.
because you can't climb over it, just the access ramp.
So I have one question, and I have a statement I'd like to make. The final sentence in the proposal on page 38, and Joanne eliminated it, and I'm glad she did. It says the new project total cost will be $266,819.97. That's incorrect. And I don't know what it's doing in there. Because indeed, the total that we're trying to fund is that $227,255.97. So I don't know why that last sentence is there, because it really makes no sense, and you didn't read it when you explained it. In the explanation on the prior page, it's perfect, and I get it.
Yeah, it's, if you look in the second paragraph of the analysis section, Linda, we spent 41,564 to date.
Yeah, I got that,
And so when you add that to the new amount,
but we don't need that. What we do is you take that new amount of the 225,
no, you're exactly right. We don't need to fund that much, but that's,
but
like, when
that's
you-
how that got in there. That 266 shouldn't be in there.
oh yeah, I mean, it's just sort of a side note, because when you look at it in the final accounting, it'll be more than 225. It'll be 266 for the total project. That capital code will add up to that total
Yeah,
amount.
but we already approved the 53.
Precisely.
We've already spent most of it.
Yeah,
So on that note, Joel told us earlier that our obligated funds in SURF were $610,100. In April, we approved another $162,153. So now we have a total of obligated funds of $772,253. We're looking at approving another $281,849 now. That takes us to over $1 million. My concern is with the ADA compliance. We did the engineered, stamped. What they thought it was going to cost came in at 78,000. Where are we now? 107,867. That's a big increase in roads. And that would, I couldn't believe the culvert 315. Once again, huge increase, even after these engineers are doing this. My concern is we're going to say, yeah, we got 200 and, we have this 225,000. So are we going to see again where a contractor comes in and goes, whoops, sorry, $300,000, and we end up approving more? It's just, and
Good.
I understand it's the times, but I'm saying there's a trend here that's kind of unnerving. That's all.
That everything costs a lot more and that we waited until a COVID pandemic to happen to really start repairing things. But unfortunate.
I know, and I'm concerned because I'm looking at, we still have barn 8 that's only got this little piddly amount for just to go out and find somebody to put the design together. We have the tennis courts, and I'm saying these could be 2, especially this building, because there's that, if I'm not mistaken, we divided up the barn from that outside entry because it's going to be so expensive. I'm just I just want us to all be aware that we're kind of spending money like drunken sailors. No offense, and I understand.
Well, it's
we
an
do it in the
offense,
cost.
actually. It was really rude, but, yeah, I mean, especially when somebody says no offense, it's usually an offense, but,
Whatever you say.
well, I'm gonna say it because I'm the treasurer. So, and unfortunately Joel stepped out for a minute or he would respond, but I talked with him about this. And one of the things is that we've had to make adjustments based on, slow permitting times that are happening with the county. The other thing, when you're talking about culvert 315, those numbers, like AJ mentioned, culvert 315 should have been done. That was not finished. That was something we inherited from another board that we had to get up and going. So when you're taking old quotes, we have to update them. We have to bring everything in. The same thing with this dock. If it had been done correctly in the first place, we wouldn't be looking at this dollar amount. We wouldn't be looking anywhere near this dollar amount. But because of all of the issues with it, and it was unpermitted and it wasn't designed in the first place, this is where we are. And we have to follow county code on that. But as far as our SURF funds, we're almost finished. This is what happens every year. And Linda, you've been on the board for quite a while and over the years. And you know that during this period of time, this is when the board starts allocating for the capital funding and the planning part. We're coming up to the end of that for this year. And I worked with, and there's Joel right there, but I've talked with Joel regarding our SURF account and to ensure that we're on track because there are things that we thought we were going to spend this year that were pushed out. The covered bridge portion actually was delayed due to engineering that we needed to do that separate. It was going to delay the approval and permitting process with the county. So we separated it out or it was going to push the entire barn out to who knows when. So that's why it was separated. It wasn't because of the cost. But all that being said, we're on track to we anticipate SURF is exactly where we expected it would be on our budget planning of what we would spend down this year.
That was in the budget. What was
Right,
in
we're
the-
just,
in
it's
the
just
packet.
spending it
Okay.
on different.
I got a number I can look at.
Yeah,
then.
we're just spending
Gotcha.
it because Joel and I talked about this. Her question, sorry, Joel just entered the room for people that didn't see that, but her question was that we're spending a lot. We're going to overspend SURF and what we budgeted for SURF this year. And we talked about that yesterday to ensure that our numbers were on track and that we were okay with our SURF budget. You want to?
Yeah, that's basically correct. There's a lot of times, like when the engineer, when Tyler, when I'll say, hey, this could cost this much or whatever, we'll always go back and look at the SURF spending plan to see, okay, well, this one is a little over, however, these projects over here are running under, or these two don't really need to be done, or they don't need to be done for a long while. So we're always looking to make sure that basically it's a balanced spend, so to speak, for the year.
My concern with that I expressed that Sonia really didn't say is that so many of these first amounts that we approve, we end up coming back with large change orders.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, we're talking about $212,000 here. And if the actual bid comes in at 300, and I was just saying, we have this barn 8 that we don't have hard numbers on yet, that we know is going to be a large project. And chances are the tennis courts are too.
The thing
But-
working in our favor is this engineer's estimate is more contemporaneous with the actual production or construction estimates and bids. So,
I'll-
statistically speaking,
I'm just concerned because like I
Yeah.
say, it's a lot of money,
So
when you go
we
from-
can reject it when the bids come in, just because we obligated these funds. If the bids come in and the board goes, this is just ridiculous, we can't justify this, you're not obligated to move forward with the project.
Oh, I
That is
understand that, but you also have a marina that's one of our assets. It's just like Barn 8 is, and like I say, they're both really big projects. And I think the tennis courts are going to end up being a large project also, probably more than's in the reserve study.
We're caring for that asset.
I know, but I'm saying if the contractor comes back any of them for any of these projects above what we've allocated or what's in the reserve study. You have to, looking at the track record so far this year, we've done a lot of change orders for expending more of our capital. That's all.
Well, and it's a legitimate concern, Linda. I shared that concern. That's why Joel and I had this conversation. I was a little concerned about adding the tall barn, even though it's a economy of scale type of a thing and might really express that they needed it. And that's where I was like, well, we need to reevaluate where we are for exactly the reason that you're talking about. Things are coming in a lot higher and heavier, but we felt pretty confident because there's several things that got pushed off until next year, and a couple of big items like the ice barn. The board needs to spend some time, as AJ alluded to, of really having some capital planning
We haven't seen
discussions.
The 135, are we gonna see that? in
Yeah, I
the-
was planning on bringing that back with like a planning meeting here in the near future where I'm working with Joanne to kind of formulate how to bring all of that information in front of the board and
Cause it's gonna do with the budgeting for next year. That's
yeah.
gonna be June here soon,
mean,
folks.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is everything's costing more and unfortunately we don't have any control over those outside costs. I think there's also the elements, that our reserve study, and this is why we've gone out and tried to get better numbers, like the reserve studies are just not always indicative of all the environmental requirements we have in Washington State or the construction costs that we have here compared to an average nationwide type thing,
True.
and so like why the board approved an engineering firm to evaluate the main marina docks, there's work being done on the ice barn to evaluate what our options are there. We have a trails component of a plan that was part of the roads that we pulled out so the roads could keep going, but that's another thing that the board, those things don't even exist, so the board would have to have serious discussions and determinations on whether we would pursue that and how we would do that, in conjunction with the membership, those
I guess
types of
I
things.
have a
So
Question then, with some of this stuff like the tennis courts, barn 8 that we hope to do this year and stuff that's work that we've said we've had. Is there any instruction to Tyler as to how we need to move forward to this to get our numbers?
Yeah, he has the information for the ice barn. That's ready to go. And when we scheduled this planning session that AJ's talking about, he'll be there and be able to present the options that we're talking about and be available to answer questions.
I'm more
that,
concerned about
and then-
barn 8 and that is something that we use all the time now. That's all I'm saying. And the tennis courts, except for.
Well, we're moving forward with all of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're moving
this
forward.
doesn't impact, no, it doesn't impact any of that. It won't impact, refurbishing and this barn. And it won't impact the rec corridor tennis courts. Those
Okay.
are done. The board's committed to those.
Okay.
So this would be exactly what AJ's saying. Some of these things that aren't necessarily necessities, right? They're not, but it's something to consider of what do we want to do? How are we wanting to fund these things over the next 10 years? Because they're big ticket items
Mhm.
and we have to plan for them. And then you've got the marina docks.
Yep.
That's something we're,
And that's gonna be another big one.
right.
because the reality is the alternative is no dock gets put there and we have a ramp. That's kind of the decision we have in front of us at the moment,
Oh, I understand that. When you look at a lot of these decisions we're making now, they have a similar trend, and I think it's something we all should be aware of. That's all.
Yeah, and that's why we'll do that.
It's for sure. Like I know at Whatcom County, we had a bridge that we put out to bid and came in way like $800,000 over or something like that. And we delayed the project. But the bridge that's there is still functional, for the time being, but we don't have something functional in place to delay anything at this point.
Oh, especially and I believe that the launch dock is important.
Yeah.
I think we have considerable risk by not having a launch dock there and just having the little thing where you can put, it's just It's almost impossible unless you're real clever.
I think the thing that's compelling for me too, with regards to this dock in particular is regardless of if the marina continued in perpetuity, if it ever went away, this dock and that ramp would still be a useful amenity if, you know, in the future that something like that ever happened. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but like, you know, this would still be a usable asset. Any more discussion? Okay, I'll make a motion that the board of directors approve the allocation of an additional $212,890.97 from SURF Fund for Capital Code 997. Sorry, start over 9719.20.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor? All right, opposed?
I'm abstaining. I just feel like I would have liked to have more information for myself, so I don't feel like I can make a decision.
Okay, everyone's approved. Timey abstained. All right, we'll move on to the last capital request, and last agenda item is the main pool furniture replacement, and pass it to Joanne. Huh?
This capital request is easier to understand.
I get this one.
We like this one. The purpose is to request approval for the purchase of additional furniture for the main pool. In 2019, the Board of Directors approved $35,000 for the purchase of pool supplies, including about $10,000 for furniture that was intended for the quiet pool. That furniture, along with some miscellaneous odds and ends, maybe it came from Target, was used last year at the main pool. Most of the furniture that was purchased is still functional, but there's not enough of it to serve the needs of the larger pool, because remember, it was bought just for the adult pool. An inventory of current furniture is given in the table below, and I attached pictures so you could see what it looked like. So we currently have 12 loungers, 5 white tables that are round, 2 off-white rectangular tables, no umbrellas at all, 7 umbrella stands, 23 resin chairs, and 8 backless benches. So I went through a little bit of analysis. The maximum safe occupancy of the pool in the deck area is 150 people. But attendance only reaches that maximum on a handful of days during the season. So using a working number of 100 to 120, and then assuming that about a third of those would need seating at any one time, that gives you some scope for understanding how many seats you need, right? Butts. With this number in mind, we propose the following set of furniture. White loungers, 20, increasing by 8, keeping the current 5 tables, adding 7 umbrellas, retaining the current 7 stands, buying new resin chairs that are not discolored and ready to fracture, and continuing to maintain the 8 backless benches. And we will repair the tops. We're going to cover them this year, but next year we'll repair them, replace them with like Trex or something. And then for the quiet pool, we'll take the current beige loungers, the 2 off-white rectangular chairs, and some additional resin chairs, so that pool is also properly equipped. So if we maintain that set of furniture, the next table shows you what we have to buy. We have to get 20 loungers, 7 umbrellas, and 14 chairs. So we spent a lot of time on the internet looking at about 8,000 identical white loungers of various materials and weights and prices and delivery costs. And I never want to ever do that again. And I didn't do most of it. I just did about 15 minutes of it. But anyway, after looking at all the options, we came up with a range of things. And then in yellow, I highlighted the things that I thought were the best buy for what we want to do. So the loungers are they're not the highest end loungers, but they are rated for up to 350 pounds. They have arms on them so you can get in and out of them better. And I think they're they have a reasonable lifespan. You know, this furniture isn't gonna last 5 years because it's out in the sun, it gets chlorine on it, you know, it's plastic, but it's decent for the price. The umbrellas, we picked a cheaper one because honestly, anything we get is gonna get destroyed by the sun. Even the most expensive fabrics deteriorate pretty quickly, so we figured that a cheaper umbrella was better because their lifespan is short. But we didn't get the cheapest possible one, the $73 one. We're saying the $129 one. And then we thought the resin chairs, again, it's not the cheapest one, but they're slightly better and they're wider and more stable and they're rated for a higher weight. So they seem like they would be better. So anyway, that's what we're recommending. If we get 24, so we fully equip the main pool and then we'll have extras. I thought that was better than relying on the current resin chairs. Anyway, the amount with sales tax is about 97, 82, 78. So I'm asking for 10.5 because as everyone who's ever shopped on Amazon knows, these prices could suddenly change dramatically when we go back to order. And so I put some contingency into the amount, but so that's my request, that the board approve $10,500, which is the recommended purchase amount with a 10% contingency from SURF for the purchase of pool furniture and equipment.
All right, any discussion? Linda, then Sonia?
I just have a question. So what furniture is in the quiet pool? It makes it sound like there's nothing left over there.
Well, we pulled all the furniture over here and last year there was some donated furniture and some of those loungers that have like the webbing across them.
Yep.
And they're just like a nightmare actually from
Yep.
from a safety standpoint. So we don't want to use those. We don't want to use those.
The umbrellas are what really take a beating. I have to say that as somebody, I used the quiet pool last year. It was chilly and I didn't use it much, but normally I look forward to using the quiet pool and I'm like, so what's left over there?
It'll
That's
put
all.
all those beige ones that they just bought a few years ago, like,
Okay.
back
Yeah.
over there. So that whole set, there's, I believe, 12,
Yeah.
shades.
Yeah, there's 12 of those beige loungers. And there'll be 2 longer rectangular tables that we can put up on the concrete area and chairs to fill that out. And
Is there an
Umbrellas?
umbrella?
no, we did not order umbrellas because there's shade over there from the tree.
Oh, not go.
How many, so all the umbrellas are apparently gone. So how many umbrellas are usually over
There
there?
used to be 3 tables, round tables with those. But like I say, it's like the wind comes up in there and they really take a beating at times.
So you're saying we need 3 more umbrellas?
I think is Rob still here? Weren't there like 3? Oh, I'm not.
Okay, so we do need the umbrellas. Okay, well then 3 more umbrellas. But that should be covered by the contingency.
Yeah. I just was concerned that, because I remember that they switched them out. And like you say, originally we had those webbing ones. And then we had the nicer ones. I'm going, well, if they took them all.
Yeah, so the idea is the beige furniture will stay at the
Okay.
quiet pool.
Okay,
We won't have to steal it for the main pool because we'll be putting the white stuff in
Gotcha.
over there. And then we'll also be able to clearly delineate what goes where because we'll have these 2 slightly different
there
colors.
should be some pictures somewhere too of the quiet pool with the umbrella tables, but I think there were 3.
Okay, well, I know for sure there's 2 that I counted and they're larger and rectangular.
Oh,
So
where
we can
these were
start out
round
that way.
and they were round like standard stuff. you
Really?
order.
That's weird. Well, we'll equip it and then people will give me feedback. I get plenty of feedback.
After you.
No,
Oh, go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to say, I'm concerned, I think it's very pretty what you picked as your choice, but I'm wondering, can we, is there a stackable option? Because I'm a little concerned that, where are we storing all this non-stackable furniture? And also just the fact of the manpower to move it and put it away and then put it back out. Like at the end of season, we have to put it somewhere. And at the beginning of the season, we have to put it. So you've got staff carrying one piece of furniture and And what, we renting a U-Haul to bring it back? I don't know. So is it possible to get stackable chase?
Yeah,
lounges?
we did identify stackable loungers. They tended to have a lower weight capacity, and when I, at 60+ years unwieldiness, tried to get out of those loungers, I found them to be very difficult. So I have a certain point of view on the loungers, full disclosure. I did consider storage, because obviously we have to put this stuff somewhere, and 20 enormous loungers are very difficult. So the style of lounger that we chose actually has a hand grip at the top of it, which you can hang over a bicycle hook, which we could put in the shed by the quiet pool. So I tested that out. There are stackable versions. If you guys feel concerned about that, we can go back and buy them. I wasn't in love with them because of the reasons I stated.
So do they fold up and then you could potentially hang them? You're
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
in
they
the shed?
flatten. The reason they're not stackable is because they have those, the handling.
Adjustable.
Yeah,
Right.
I've seen it.
And
So we could just put one of those long things or whatever and at least put a few of them?
yeah, I was thinking to hang them up, literally,
Yeah.
so that normally a lounger's like this, but it would be hanging up. So, and then you could push them right up against each other. And yeah, 20 is gonna take up some space, but that shed should take it. Cause I don't think we need to put the tables in there. I think we can cover the tables and leave them where they are. So that was my thinking.
Thank you.
I was just gonna suggest that, the quiet pool, just do it at its location, probably gets a lot more wind than the main pool over here. So instead of buying the same umbrellas, maybe look for some that are a little more durable, that are intended to be in windy areas.
Okay, point taken. And we'll get the heavier stands too, because we'll obviously need to, if we only have 7 stands, we're gonna need to get 3 for the quiet pool.
And they make those triple tier ones that are made
Yeah,
for,
they let the air go in.
yeah.
Something with tassels, maybe.
But no tiki torches. They are too dangerous.
Any other discussion? All right, I'm gonna make a motion. Actually gonna add a little bit to this on the fly, I think, just to specify. I'll move that the Sun Valley Board of Directors approve $10,500 from the SURF fund for the purchase of pool furniture / equipment, based on Joanne or the general manager's recommendation. That way we're specifying that we're purchasing what she highlighted essentially.
Second.
Any other discussion? All the question, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. All right, it's the last item and we're adjourned.
Hey, I just wanted to apologize for making my remark earlier when Michael walked up. I didn't realize that Mike had resigned tonight, and so my comedy was ill-timed.